A girl hands a police dog her teddy bear, and when officers open it, they can't believe what's inside. This isn't a story about a lost toy or a cute moment with a K9 unit. This is the story of an 8-year-old girl who made the most courageous decision of her life, and the incredible secret she'd been hiding inside the one thing she loved most. In the next few minutes, you're going to understand why those officers couldn't believe what they found, and why her sacrifice would set off a chain reaction that no one saw coming. Stay with us. Her name was Emma, and she was 8 years old. She lived in a quiet suburb where nothing ever seemed to happen, the kind of neighborhood where kids rode bikes on tree-lined streets and neighbors waved from their front porches. To anyone passing by, Emma looked like any other third grader. Brown pigtails, a backpack covered in stickers, a gap-toothed smile. But nobody really knew her. Nobody really saw her. Emma's home was a modest 2-story house with a white picket fence. Her parents were divorced, and she spent most weekdays with her mother, a nurse who worked long shifts at the hospital. Her afternoons were spent with her grandmother, a quiet woman who loved gardening and didn't ask many questions. Emma had learned early on that being quiet meant being safe. Being invisible meant you didn't cause problems. But Emma had one thing that was entirely hers, a teddy bear named Mr. Whiskers. He was old, worn at the seams, with one eye slightly loose and patches of fur that had faded from years of hugs and cuddles. She'd had him since she was a baby, and he was the only constant in her life. When her parents fought, she held Mr. Whiskers. When she felt alone, she whispered her secrets to him. He was her best friend, her confidant, the only being in the world who truly knew her. Emma's life changed on a Tuesday afternoon in October. She was in her grandmother's backyard, sitting under the oak tree, when she heard voices coming from the house next door. Angry voices. A man's voice, loud and threatening. A woman's voice, pleading. Emma froze. She knew she shouldn't listen, but something in those voices made her body go rigid with fear. She crept closer to the fence, staying low behind the hedges. Through a gap in the boards, she could see into the neighbor's garage. A man she'd never seen before was there, tall, with a scar on his face. He was holding something that glinted in the afternoon light. A gun. Emma's heart stopped. The man was yelling at someone Emma couldn't see. "You know what happens if you talk to anyone. You know what I'll do?" His voice was cold, calculated, terrifying. Nobody talks, nobody says anything, or everyone pays the price. Emma couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. She watched as the man shoved the gun into a bag and threw it into a metal toolbox. Then he grabbed someone by the arm, a woman with a bruised face, and dragged her back into the house. The door slammed. Emma ran. She ran back to her grandmother's house, her legs shaking, her mind spinning. She burst through the back door and locked herself in her bedroom. She grabbed Mr. Whiskers and held him so tightly her arms ached. She had seen something terrible, something dangerous. And she knew, with absolute certainty, that she couldn't tell anyone. Not her mother, not her grandmother, not her teacher. Because that man had said it clearly. Nobody talks, or everyone pays the price. But keeping silent was slowly destroying her. Over the next few weeks, Emma couldn't sleep. She'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying that moment over and over. The gun, the man's voice, the woman's bruised face. She started having nightmares. She stopped eating lunch at school. Her grades began to slip. Her teacher asked if everything was okay at home. Emma just shook her head and said nothing. She was carrying a secret that was too big for an 8-year-old to bear. One night, lying in bed with Mr. Whiskers pressed against her chest, Emma made a decision. She couldn't keep this inside anymore. It was eating her alive. But she was too terrified to tell an adult directly. What if they didn't believe her? What if they told the wrong person? What if that man found out? And then an idea came to her. A desperate, brilliant idea. She would hide the evidence. She would put it somewhere safe. And she would give it to someone who could help, someone official, someone with authority, someone like a police officer. Emma carefully opened the seam of Mr. Whisker's back and began to prepare. She didn't know if anyone would believe her, but she knew one thing for certain. She couldn't stay silent anymore. The weight of her secret was too much to carry alone. Emma sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor. Mr. Whiskers laid out in front of her like a patient on an operating table. Her small hands trembled as she carefully examined the seams along his back. She had chosen him for a reason. He was old enough that the stitching was already loose in places, worn from years of love and handling. Nobody would suspect anything was hidden inside him. She pulled out a small notebook from under her mattress, the one she'd been secretly writing in for weeks. Page after page filled with details she'd managed to remember. The date, the time, the man's description, the scar on his face, the gun, the woman's bruised cheek, the metal toolbox. She'd even sketched a rough map of the neighbor's garage based on what she'd seen through the fence. But a notebook alone wasn't enough. Emma knew from watching TV shows with her grandmother that police needed evidence. They needed proof. And she had to make sure that when she gave it to them, they would take her seriously. She carefully began to unpick the stitches along Mr. Whisker's back seam using a small pair of scissors from her art kit. Her fingers were so tiny that it took her nearly an hour to create an opening large enough. Stuffing spilled out onto the floor, old cotton that smelled like her childhood, like safety, like all the nights she'd held him while the world felt too big and too scary. Emma's eyes filled with tears as she worked. She was destroying the one thing she loved most, but she had to. For the woman with the bruised face, for anyone else that man might hurt. For herself. Once the opening was large enough, Emma carefully rolled up her notebook and slipped it inside the bear. But she knew she needed more. She needed something that couldn't be ignored or dismissed, something physical, something undeniable. Over the next few days, Emma became a detective in her own home. She borrowed her mother's old digital camera, one she never used anymore, and hid it in her backpack. She told her grandmother she was working on a school project about neighborhood safety and needed to take some photographs. Her grandmother, distracted by her gardening, barely looked up. Emma waited for her opportunity. It came on a Saturday afternoon when her grandmother was at the grocery store and Emma was supposed to be doing homework. Instead, she crept to the side of the property where the neighbor's house was closest. She positioned herself behind the thick hedge and waited, camera in hand, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst through her chest. She didn't know exactly what she was waiting for, but she knew she had to try. Then she heard it, the angry voice again. The same man. He was in the backyard now, arguing with someone on the phone. Emma carefully raised the camera and clicked. Once, twice, 3 times. The images were blurry through the hedge, but they were something. They were proof that he existed, that he was real, that this wasn't just a child's imagination. "I don't care what you think," the man was saying. "The package is ready. We move Friday night. And if anyone gets in our way..." He made a throat-cutting gesture that made Emma's blood run cold. She lowered the camera with shaking hands. Friday night. Whatever was happening, it was happening soon. That night, Emma printed the photographs at school using the computer lab when the teacher wasn't looking. She'd watched her mother do it 100 times. The images came out grainy and small, but they were there. She folded them carefully and added them to Mr. Whisker's hollow cavity. Now she had a notebook with her observations. She had photographs. She had a timeline. She had evidence. But she still had one problem. How was she going to get it to the police? She couldn't just walk into the police station alone. They'd call her parents. They'd ask questions. That man had made it clear that talking to anyone would have consequences. Emma was terrified, not just for herself, but for her mother, her grandmother, anyone she loved. She needed a plan that was foolproof. She needed a way to get the evidence into the hands of someone official without anyone knowing it was her. And then, 3 days later, she saw the police dog demonstration at her school. Officer Martinez had brought his K-9 partner, a German shepherd named Duke, to talk about police work and safety. The kids were gathered in the gymnasium, and Officer Martinez was explaining how Duke could detect drugs, explosives, and other dangerous materials. He talked about how important it was to report suspicious activity, how brave people who came forward with information could help save lives. Emma watched intently as Officer Martinez demonstrated Duke's skills. The dog was smart, obedient, and clearly loved his handler. But what struck Emma most was what Officer Martinez said at the end. If you ever see something that scares you or seems wrong, you should tell a trusted adult. But if you're too scared to do that, you can also contact the police anonymously. There are ways to report things safely. Anonymously? That word changed everything. After the demonstration, while the other kids were lining up to pet Duke, Emma approached Officer Martinez. Her voice was so quiet, he had to lean down to hear her. If someone wanted to give police a teddy bear, Emma asked carefully, would Duke be able to help deliver it? Officer Martinez looked at her with kind eyes. That's an interesting question. Why do you ask? Emma's heart raced. She couldn't tell him the truth, not yet, not directly. So she said the only thing she could. Just wondering. But Officer Martinez wasn't naive. He'd been a cop for 15 years. He knew when a child was hiding something. He knelt down to Emma's level and spoke softly, so only she could hear. If you ever need help with something, Emma, you can always tell me. Or you can tell any police officer. We're here to help kids who are in trouble. Emma nodded, but she didn't say anything else. She couldn't risk it. Not yet. That night, she made her final decision. She would approach Officer Martinez again at the next school event. She would give him Mr. Whiskers. She would tell him that the bear contained something important. And then she would run. She would let the evidence speak for itself. The plan was set. All she had to do now was wait for the right moment, and hope that when she handed over the one thing she loved most in the world, someone would finally listen. The next week felt like it lasted a year. Emma went through the motions of being a normal third grader. She attended classes, ate lunch in the cafeteria, played on the playground during recess. But inside, she was vibrating with anxiety. Every sound made her jump. Every time an adult looked at her, she was certain they could see her secret written across her face in invisible ink. She kept Mr. Whiskers in a backpack under her bed, the seam carefully stitched back up with thread that almost matched his original color. To anyone looking at him, he appeared normal, loved, worn, innocent. But inside him lay the evidence that could change everything, evidence that felt heavier than lead, more dangerous than dynamite. Emma had overheard the man next door mention Friday night 3 days ago. That meant she had limited time. She needed to get the bear to Officer Martinez before something happened, before that man did whatever he was planning to do. before someone else got hurt. The school announced a career day for the following Thursday. Officer Martinez was scheduled to return with Duke to talk about K-9 units and law enforcement. It was perfect timing. It was her chance. But it was also terrifying. Tuesday night. The weight of secrets. Emma sat at the dinner table with her mother, pushing food around her plate without really eating. Her mother was tired from her shift at the hospital. She'd been working double shifts all week and barely seemed to notice that Emma wasn't eating. "You okay, sweetie?" her mother asked absently, scrolling through her phone while holding a fork in her other hand. "Yeah, Mom. Just not hungry," Emma replied quietly. Her mother reached over and felt her forehead. "You're not getting sick, are you? I can't afford to miss work right now." The casual cruelty of that statement, not intentional but cutting nonetheless, made Emma's chest tighten. She couldn't tell her mother. Her mother was already overwhelmed, already struggling to keep them afloat. If Emma told her what she'd seen, what she knew, it would only add to her burden. And what if her mother did something that put her in danger? What if she confronted the man? What if he hurt her? No, Emma had to handle this alone. "I'm fine, Mom. Just tired from school." Her mother nodded, already distracted again. She took another bite of her pasta and returned her attention to her phone. Emma watched her for a moment. This woman who loved her, who worked so hard, who was doing her best despite everything. Emma made a silent promise. "I'm going to protect you, even if you don't know I'm doing it." Wednesday. The doubt creeps in. As Wednesday dawned, Emma's courage began to crack like thin ice in spring. She sat in her classroom during math, staring at a worksheet about fractions that might as well have been written in a foreign language. Her mind was elsewhere. Replaying the moment she would hand over Mr. Whiskers, imagining all the ways it could go wrong. What if Officer Martinez didn't believe her? 8-year-olds had vivid imaginations. They watched cartoons and movies. They made things up. What if he thought she was making it all up? Some elaborate fantasy born from too much television. What if he opened the bear right there in front of everyone, and the secret spilled out, literally and figuratively? What if other kids saw? What if word got back to the man somehow? What if he realized it was her? What if something happened to her mother or grandmother because of what she was about to do? Emma's hands began to sweat. She gripped her pencil so hard it nearly snapped. "Emma?" Her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, was standing over her desk. "Are you with us? Can you tell me what 3-4 plus 1-4 equals?" Emma looked up, blinking. The classroom seemed to tilt slightly. 1. "That's right," Mrs. Patterson said, but her eyes narrowed slightly with concern. "Are you feeling okay? You seem distracted today." "I'm fine," Emma said automatically, the lie coming easily now. She'd become very good at lying in the past few weeks. Mrs. Patterson didn't push it. She moved on to another student, but Emma could feel her teacher's eyes on her for the rest of the lesson. Adults had a sixth sense for when children were hiding something. Emma wondered how long it would take before someone figured out that something was seriously wrong. Wednesday afternoon, the ritual. After school, Emma went to her grandmother's house, as usual. Her grandmother was in the garden, tending to her roses, the one thing that seemed to bring her genuine joy these days. Emma watched her from the back porch, observing the careful way her grandmother pruned the branches, the gentle way she touched the petals. "Come help me, Emma," her grandmother called out. Emma joined her in the garden, and for the next hour, they worked together in companionable silence. Emma's grandmother never asked many questions. She just handed Emma tools and showed her how to dig small holes for new seedlings. There was something meditative about it, something that calmed Emma's racing mind. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, her grandmother put her arm around Emma's shoulders. "You're a good girl, Emma. You know that, right? You're thoughtful. You're kind. You notice things that other people miss." Emma leaned into her grandmother's embrace, breathing in the scent of soil and roses. If only her grandmother knew how much Emma was noticing. If only she knew the weight that Emma was carrying. "I love you, Grandma," Emma whispered. "I love you too, sweetheart. Always." Wednesday night, the final preparations. That night, Emma lay in bed with Mr. Whiskers, unable to sleep. She held him close, her small arms wrapped around his soft body, and she whispered to him like she always did. But this time, her words were different. This time, she was saying goodbye. "I'm sorry," she whispered into his fuzzy ear. "I'm sorry I have to do this to you. You've been with me since I was a baby. You've been my best friend. You've listened to all my secrets, all my fears, all my dreams. And now I'm asking you to do the bravest thing you've ever done." She paused, her voice catching with emotion. "There's a woman next door. She has bruises on her face. And I think that man is hurting her. And I think he might hurt other people too. And you're the only way I can help her without getting in trouble. You're the only way I can be brave." Emma pressed her face against Mr. Whiskers' worn fur, and silent tears rolled down her cheeks. "But you're the bravest thing I have, and I need to be brave too. So I'm asking you, please help me. Please help that woman. Please help me do the right thing." She held him like that for a long time, memorizing the feel of him, the weight of him in her arms, knowing that after Thursday, things would be different. After Thursday, she might never get him back. After Thursday, her life would change in ways she couldn't fully predict or control. But she also knew that she couldn't live with herself if she didn't try. Thursday morning, the day of reckoning. Thursday morning arrived gray and cold, as if the weather itself sensed the significance of the day. Emma woke before her alarm, her stomach already twisted into knots. She lay in bed for several minutes, staring at the ceiling, gathering her courage like scattered puzzle pieces. She got out of bed and went through her morning routine mechanically. Shower, breakfast, getting dressed. She chose her favorite purple sweater, the one her mother had given her for her birthday, the one that made her feel a little bit braver. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the girl looking back. She looked older somehow, more serious, less like a child and more like someone carrying adult responsibilities. Emma carefully packed Mr. Whiskers into her backpack, positioning him gently so he wouldn't get crushed. She zipped the backpack slowly, as if the slower she moved, the longer she could delay what was about to happen. At breakfast, her grandmother was making oatmeal. She smiled when she saw Emma in her purple sweater. "You look nice today, Emma. Special occasion?" "Career day at school," Emma said, the words feeling hollow in her mouth. "Oh, that's wonderful. Are you excited?" Emma nodded, not trusting herself to speak more than necessary. Her grandmother packed her an extra cookie for lunch, her favorite chocolate chip with walnuts, and kissed the top of her head. "Have a great day, sweetheart. Learn something new." If only she knew how much Emma was about to learn. If only she knew that her granddaughter's entire world was about to shift on its axis. Thursday morning. The arrival. The gymnasium was already filling with students when Emma arrived. Parents and professionals lined the perimeter, setting up tables and displays. There was a firefighter with equipment arranged in an impressive display: helmets, axes, coils of rope. A veterinarian had set up a table with skeleton models and pictures of different animals. A construction worker stood behind blueprints of various buildings, explaining structural engineering to anyone who would listen. And there, near the far corner of the gymnasium, was Officer Martinez with Duke. Emma's stomach twisted into knots so tight she thought she might be sick. The German Shepherd was alert and beautiful, his black and tan coat gleaming under the gymnasium lights. Officer Martinez was in full uniform, looking professional and authoritative. He was talking to a group of fifth graders, demonstrating how Duke could follow a scent trail. Emma's hands felt clammy. Her heart was beating so fast she was certain everyone around her could hear it. She spent the first part of career day avoiding that corner. She looked at the firefighters' equipment, asking questions about how heavy the gear was and how firefighters stayed cool in their suits. She petted the veterinarian's cat, a beautiful tabby named Whiskers. The coincidence of the name made Emma's throat tight. She asked the construction worker detailed questions about buildings, about blueprints, about how they made sure structures didn't fall down. But the whole time, she was hyper-aware of Officer Martinez's presence. She could hear Duke's occasional bark, that distinctive sound of a working dog. She could hear Officer Martinez's calm, kind voice explaining police work to groups of curious children. She could feel the weight of Mr. Whiskers in her backpack, like a stone pressing against her shoulders. Her hands were shaking. She clasped them together to try to hide it. Thursday afternoon, the moment of truth, finally, as the event was winding down. The clock on the gymnasium wall showed 2:47 p.m. Emma knew she couldn't wait any longer. If she didn't do this now, she might lose her nerve entirely. If she didn't do this now, Friday night would come, and whatever that man was planning would happen, and she would have to live with the knowledge that she could have stopped it, but didn't. She took a deep breath. She stood up from the bleachers where she'd been sitting, and she walked toward Officer Martinez's table, her legs feeling like they were moving through water. Officer Martinez was alone at the moment. The group of fifth graders had moved on to the construction workers' table. Duke lifted his head as Emma approached, his tail wagging in recognition. The dog's friendliness, his innocence, his complete lack of awareness of the weight Emma was carrying, made her throat tighten with emotion. Officer Martinez looked up and smiled. "Emma, right? Good to see you again. Do you want to pet Duke?" Emma nodded, but she didn't reach out to the dog. Instead, she slowly pulled Mr. Whiskers from her backpack. The bear emerged from the darkness of the pack like a small, worn artifact from another era. His button eye caught the light. His fur, matted and loved, told the story of countless nights of comfort and companionship. Officer Martinez's expression shifted immediately. His casual friendliness transformed into something more alert, more focused. He set down the materials he'd been holding and gave Emma his full attention. "Emma," he said quietly, his voice dropping to a more serious register. "What's going on?" "Officer Martinez," Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need to give you something, and I need you to promise me something." The officer's demeanor changed completely. His casual career day presentation mode shifted into something else, something more protective, more official. He glanced around to make sure no other children were immediately nearby. Then he knelt down to Emma's level, just as he had done before during the previous demonstration. Duke seemed to sense the shift in mood. The dog pressed against Officer Martinez's leg, alert and calm. "Okay, Emma, I'm listening. What do you need to give me?" Officer Martinez's voice was steady and reassuring. but Emma could see the concern in his eyes. He knew something serious was happening. Emma held out Mr. Whiskers with both hands, extending him like an offering, like a prayer. The bear dangled between them, his loose button eyes seeming to watch Officer Martinez, his worn fur telling silent stories of love and comfort and childhood innocence. "There's something inside him," Emma whispered, her voice shaking. "Important things, evidence. But I can't tell you what it is. Not here, not where anyone can hear. And I need you to promise that you won't tell anyone it was me. Please, I'm scared." Officer Martinez took the bear gently from Emma's hands, treating it with the same care and respect he would show to any piece of evidence from a crime scene. He held Mr. Whiskers carefully, his eyes never leaving Emma's face. "Emma, I need you to listen to me very carefully," he said, his voice low and serious. "Are you in danger? Is someone hurting you?" Emma shook her head. "Not me, but someone else, and I saw something I wasn't supposed to see." Officer Martinez's jaw tightened. He nodded slowly, processing this information. He reached into his uniform pocket and pulled out a business card. On the front was his name, his badge number, and the police station's phone number. He flipped it over and, using a pen from his other pocket, wrote a number on the back in careful, precise handwriting. "I want you to take this," he said, handing her the card. "On the back, I've written my personal number. If you ever need to talk to me, if you ever feel unsafe, if you ever need help, you call this number, day or night. Doesn't matter what time it is. Can you do that?" Emma took the card with trembling fingers and nodded. She tucked it carefully into her pocket, feeling the weight of it like a lifeline. "And Emma?" Officer Martinez continued, his voice warm but serious. "You're being very brave right now. What you're doing, it takes courage. Real courage. The kind of courage that grown-ups have. Do you understand that?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. She blinked them back, not wanting to cry here, not wanting to draw attention. She nodded. "I'm going to take very good care of this bear," Officer Martinez said, holding Mr. Whiskers gently but securely. "And I'm going to look inside him. And whatever I find, I promise you that I will treat it seriously. I will treat it like the important evidence that it is. And I promise you that I will do everything in my power to keep you safe. And to keep anyone else who might be in danger safe. Okay?" "Okay," Emma whispered. She felt lighter somehow, as if she'd set down a burden she'd been carrying for weeks. But she also felt empty, as if a part of her had been left behind on that gymnasium floor. "Emma," Officer Martinez said softly, "you did the right thing. You did a really brave thing today." Emma nodded, unable to speak. She turned to leave, her legs feeling unsteady beneath her. "Emma," Officer Martinez called after her, his voice so quiet that only she could hear it. She turned back. "Thank you," he said simply. "Thank you for trusting me." Emma walked away from the gymnasium slowly, aware of every step, aware of the absence of Mr. Whiskers in her backpack. She felt like she'd left a piece of her soul on that gymnasium floor, but she also felt lighter than she had in weeks. The secret was no longer hers to carry alone. Thursday afternoon, the investigation begins. Emma had no way of knowing what was happening behind the scenes. She had no way of knowing that Officer Martinez immediately excused himself from career day, taking Mr. Whiskers to a private office in the school's administrative area. With careful, methodical movements, Officer Martinez examined the bear. He could see the stitching that Emma had done, the work of a child, but careful, deliberate. He could see where the seam had been opened and then sewn back together. Using a small pocket knife, Officer Martinez carefully opened the seam completely, allowing the stuffing to spill out onto a clean desk. His eyes widened as he extracted the contents. A notebook, several photographs, and what appeared to be a timeline written in a child's careful handwriting. Officer Martinez sat down slowly, his mind already processing what he was seeing. He opened the notebook and began to read. Tuesday, October 15th, 3:47 p.m. Heard angry voices from neighbor's house. Man with scar on face. Tall, maybe 6 feet. Had a gun, metal toolbox, woman with bruises. He said, "Nobody talks or everyone pays the price." The handwriting was neat, the observations detailed. Whoever had written this had been careful, observant, and terrified. Officer Martinez pulled out the photographs. They were blurry, taken through a hedge, but unmistakable. A man with a distinctive scar running down the left side of his face. A woman with visible bruising on her cheek. A garage. A metal toolbox. Officer Martinez's blood ran cold. He recognized the man immediately. His name was Vincent Caruso, and he was wanted in connection with a string of armed robberies across 3 states, New York, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. There had been at least 6 robberies in the past 18 months, all following the same pattern. Small jewelry stores, convenience stores, and pharmacies. The robberies had escalated in violence. 2 store owners had been shot. One was still in the hospital. And the woman in the photograph. Officer Martinez pulled up the missing persons database on his computer. Was almost certainly Sarah Chen, reported missing 6 weeks ago by her sister. Sarah had been dating Caruso, and when she tried to break up with him, she disappeared. The case had gone cold. There were no leads, no witnesses, no evidence. Until now. Officer Martinez's hands trembled slightly as he pulled out his phone. He called his captain immediately. "Captain, it's Martinez. I need to brief you on something. I think we just caught a break on the Caruso case." Within an hour of Officer Martinez's call, a task force was assembled. Within 2 hours, they had a warrant. By 6:47 p.m., they were moving into position around the neighbor's house, the house next to Emma's grandmother's property. Emma had no idea what was happening. She was at home, doing her homework, trying not to think about Mr. Whiskers or what Officer Martinez might find inside him. Her grandmother was making dinner. The television was playing in the background. Then came the sound of vehicles pulling up outside. Lots of vehicles. Emma heard the distinctive sounds of police cars, the crackle of radios, the sound of boots on pavement. Emma ran to the window and peeked through the curtains. Her heart nearly stopped. Police cars lined the street. Officers in tactical gear were surrounding the neighbor's house. A SWAT team was positioning themselves at the front and back doors. A helicopter's searchlight cut through the darkening sky, illuminating the scene like a stage production. "Emma, get away from the window!" her grandmother called out, alarmed. Emma stepped back, her mind reeling. This was real. This was actually happening. The evidence she'd given Officer Martinez had been enough to trigger this massive response. The next few minutes unfolded like a scene from a movie. The SWAT team breached the front door. There were shouts, the sound of people being ordered to the ground. Emma heard a woman scream. She heard a man yelling obscenities. Then, silence. Emma's grandmother came and put her arm around her, pulling her away from the window. "It's okay, sweetheart. It's okay. The police are just doing their job." But Emma knew more than that. Emma knew that somewhere in that house, they were finding evidence. They were finding whatever Vincent Caruso had been planning for Friday night. They were finding Sarah Chen, the woman with the bruised face. And it was because of Mr. Whiskers. It was because of an 8-year-old girl who had been brave enough to give up the one thing she loved most. What the police found in that house exceeded even their worst expectations. In the basement, they discovered a cache of weapons, guns, ammunition, explosives. In the garage, they found the metal toolbox that Emma had seen through the fence. Inside were detailed plans for a jewelry store robbery scheduled for Friday night, along with floor plans and security camera locations. And in the master bedroom, they found Sarah Chen, bound and gagged, locked in a closet. She was malnourished, dehydrated, and traumatized, but alive. When the officers freed her and asked her if she knew who had reported her location, Sarah was confused. She had no idea that an 8-year-old girl had been watching through a fence. She had no idea that a teddy bear had been the instrument of her rescue. Vincent Caruso was arrested at the scene, along with 2 accomplices who had been hiding in the attic. The weapons, the plans, the evidence. It was all there. It was all real. It was all enough to put Caruso away for decades. But none of it would have been discovered without Emma. Without her courage, without Mr. Whiskers. The story made the local news. 8-year-old's teddy bear leads to arrest of wanted criminal. The headlines read. The story of how a child had witnessed a crime and found a way to report it without putting herself in danger spread through the community like wildfire. But Emma didn't see the headlines. Her mother kept the news off, sensing that Emma didn't need to see her face plastered all over the television. Officer Martinez had kept his promise. He hadn't revealed Emma's identity to the media. She remained anonymous, protected, safe. What Emma did receive was a visit from Officer Martinez 2 days later. He came to her grandmother's house on Saturday afternoon, and he was carrying something. Mr. Whiskers. The bear had been carefully examined by forensic specialists, photographed, documented, and preserved as evidence. But now, his usefulness as evidence was complete. He was being returned to his owner. Officer Martinez handed the bear to Emma with a smile. I thought you might want him back. He did his job. He helped us catch the bad guy. He helped us save Sarah Chen's life. Emma took Mr. Whiskers with trembling hands, examining him carefully. His seam had been professionally stitched back together by someone who knew what they were doing. He looked almost as good as new. Almost, but not quite. There was still evidence of what he'd been through, still the scars of his bravery. Sarah Chen wanted me to tell you something, Officer Martinez continued. She wanted to thank you. She doesn't know who you are, but she wanted you to know that you saved her life, that you were brave, that what you did mattered. Emma hugged Mr. Whiskers to her chest, tears streaming down her face. Is she okay? She's going to be okay, Officer Martinez said. She's in the hospital getting help. She's going to recover, and it's because of you. In the weeks that followed, Emma's life slowly returned to something resembling normal. She went back to school. She did her homework. She played with other kids at recess. But she was changed. She had looked into the darkness and had been brave enough to act. Mr. Whiskers sat on her bed, his worn fur now a symbol not just of childhood comfort, but of courage. Emma would hold him sometimes and remember that day in the gymnasium. Remember the weight of the secret she'd been carrying. Remember the moment she decided that doing the right thing was more important than staying silent. And sometimes, when she held him, she could almost hear him whispering, "You were brave. You did the right thing, and you changed someone's life." Officer Martinez kept in touch. He would stop by occasionally to check on Emma, to make sure she was doing okay, to remind her that what she'd done had mattered. He brought Duke sometimes, and the German Shepherd would greet Emma like an old friend. Sarah Chen recovered slowly but surely. She started a support group for domestic violence survivors. She gave talks at schools about recognizing the signs of abuse. And one day, when she was strong enough, she asked to meet the girl who had saved her life. But Emma remained anonymous. Officer Martinez protected her privacy fiercely, understanding that a child who had witnessed violence needed to be shielded from the spotlight, needed to be allowed to simply be a kid again. What Emma learned from this experience was that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides inside a worn teddy bear. Sometimes it comes from an 8-year-old girl who is terrified but does the right thing anyway. And sometimes the smallest acts of bravery can change everything. 3 months had passed since that Thursday in the gymnasium. Winter had settled over the town, transforming it into a postcard of snow and silence. Emma was 9 now, and everything felt different. The nightmares had faded, but hadn't disappeared. Emma still woke some nights in a cold sweat, her heart pounding. Her mother had taken her to see Dr. Sarah, a therapist with a warm smile and an office that smelled like lavender and books. Brave doesn't mean you don't feel scared, Dr. Sarah had told her. Brave means you do something important, even though you're scared. 3 days after Christmas, a letter arrived addressed to the girl with the teddy bear. Inside was a handwritten note from Sarah Chen, the woman Emma had saved. Dear brave girl, I don't know your name, but I know you saved my life. Officer Martinez told me how you hid evidence inside something you loved. I want you to know that I'm okay now. I'm alive because of you. Your bravery gave me my life back. Thank you for being brave. Sarah enclosed was a silver and turquoise bracelet with an inscription, Brave Heart, and the date, October 15th. Emma put it on immediately and hadn't taken it off since. She felt seen. She felt like what she'd done had actually mattered. As spring arrived, Emma found herself in a new place, emotionally. The trauma was still there, but it no longer defined her. She joined the school's art club and discovered a talent for painting. She entered a local youth art competition and won second place. She made new friends. Her best friend Maya stuck by her through everything. A new girl named Jessica didn't know about what Emma had witnessed. She just saw Emma as kind and creative. That was exactly what Emma needed. A fresh start. One afternoon in art class, Emma painted a phoenix rising from flames, a symbol of rebirth and renewal. As she mixed the oranges and reds and golds, she realized something. She was healing. In late January, Officer Martinez asked if Emma would meet with Sarah Chen in person. Sarah was leaving the residential treatment facility and wanted to thank Emma. Emma had been nervous, but when she saw Sarah, her fears melted away. Sarah was a woman in her early 30s, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. There were still faint bruises on her arms, but there was also a light in her eyes, hope and determination. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, Sarah had said, taking Emma's hand. Your bravery gave me my life back. They'd talked about recovery, about the future, about how bravery isn't the absence of fear, but doing the right thing anyway. In March, Vincent Caruso's trial took place. Emma testified via closed-circuit television from a private room at the courthouse, with her mother and Dr. Sarah present for support. She sat in front of a camera and told the jury what she'd seen that October afternoon. The man with the scar, the gun, the woman with the bruised face. The defense attorney tried to discredit her, suggesting she was a child with an overactive imagination. But Emma remained calm and consistent. She told the truth. 2 weeks later, the jury came back with a verdict. guilty on all counts. Vincent Caruso was sentenced to 45 years in prison. Officer Martinez called Emma personally. "You did it, Emma. Your testimony made a real difference. Justice was served because you were brave enough to speak up." On October 15th of the following year, Officer Martinez invited Emma to a special ceremony. The police department was recognizing her bravery with a community service award. Emma stood on a small stage, holding her award, a beautiful plaque with an engraved phoenix, and felt her mother's hand squeeze hers from the audience. After the ceremony, Sarah Chen approached Emma with a man at her side. "Emma, I wanted you to meet my fiancé, David. We're getting married next summer. I'm building a life, I'm healing, and I have you to thank for that." Emma hugged Sarah, and in that moment, she felt the full weight of what she'd accomplished. She'd saved this woman's life. She'd given her a second chance. She'd changed someone's entire future. As she walked out of the police station that day, holding her award and Mr. Whiskers tucked under her arm, Emma realized she was no longer the girl nobody noticed. She was still quiet and thoughtful, but she was also brave. She was also strong. She was also someone who had made a real difference in the world. And that made all the difference. 5 years had passed since that October afternoon when Emma had witnessed a crime that would change her life forever. She was 14 now, a freshman in high school, and the girl who had once hidden evidence in a teddy bear seemed like someone from a different lifetime. Mr. Whiskers sat on a shelf in Emma's bedroom, no longer played with, but carefully preserved. He was a relic of childhood, a symbol of a time when Emma had been forced to grow up too quickly. But she didn't regret it. The experience had shaped her in ways she was only beginning to understand. Emma walked through the hallways of Lincoln High School with a quiet confidence that surprised even herself. She wasn't the most popular girl in her class, but she was respected. People knew her as someone thoughtful, someone who listened, someone who cared deeply about doing the right thing. She was taking advanced art classes and had been accepted into a selective visual arts program. Her teachers encouraged her to apply to specialized arts high schools for her sophomore year. But Emma was hesitant. She liked her current school. She liked her friends. She liked the normalcy of it all. Her best friend Maya was still by her side, though their friendship had evolved. They didn't spend every moment together anymore, but they had a deep bond forged through shared experiences and genuine care for each other. Maya was on the soccer team now, and Emma went to all her games. Emma had also made new friends, kids who knew nothing about her past, who saw her only as she was now, a creative, intelligent, kind girl with a dry sense of humor and a talent for art. On a Tuesday evening in October, 5 years to the month since the incident, Emma's phone rang. It was Officer Martinez. She hadn't heard from him in over a year, and his voice on the phone brought back a flood of memories. "Emma, hi. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time," he said. "No, it's fine," Emma said, her heart suddenly racing. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. Actually, I'm calling with some news. Sarah Chen." "You remember Sarah?" "Of course I remember Sarah," Emma said. "Well, she's writing a book, a memoir about her experience with domestic violence, her recovery, and how she was rescued. And she wants to include your story in it. She wants to tell the world about the girl with the teddy bear." Emma felt her stomach drop. "I don't know. I like my privacy. I like that people don't know who I am." "I know," Officer Martinez said gently. "And Sarah respects that completely. She's not going to use your real name. She's not going to reveal your identity. But she wants to tell your story, the story of a child who had the courage to do the right thing." She thinks it could help other people. She thinks it could inspire people to speak up when they witness something wrong. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Can I think about it? Of course. Take all the time you need. But Emma, I think you should do it. I think your story deserves to be told. Emma thought about Officer Martinez's words for days. She talked to her mother about it. She talked to Dr. Sarah, her therapist, who she still saw occasionally for check-ins. She talked to her grandmother. What do you think I should do? Emma asked her grandmother one afternoon as they worked in the garden. Her grandmother set down her pruning shears and looked at Emma carefully. I think you should ask yourself why you're hesitant. Is it fear? Or is it something else? Emma thought about it. I guess I've spent so long trying to be normal, trying to just be a regular kid. If my story's out there, people will know what I went through. People will see me differently. They might, her grandmother acknowledged. But they also might see you as brave. They might see you as someone who made a difference. And Emma, you did make a difference. Your story could help other people. It could help children who are afraid to speak up. It could help people understand the importance of listening to children. Emma leaned against her grandmother. What if I regret it? Then you'll deal with that, her grandmother said simply. But I don't think you will. I think you'll be proud that you used your voice to help others. Emma decided to participate in Sarah's book project. She agreed to be interviewed, to share her story, with the understanding that her name would be changed and her identity protected. The interviews took place over several months, conducted by a journalist who Sarah had hired to help with the book. Emma found the process both cathartic and challenging. Talking about that October afternoon, about the fear she'd felt, about the decision to give Mr. Whiskers to Officer Martinez, it all brought back memories she'd worked hard to process and move past. But as she talked, she realized something. The story wasn't just about trauma. It was about courage. It was about a child who had recognized something wrong and had found a way to address it. It was about the power of speaking up, even when you're scared. The journalist, a woman named Rebecca, was kind and patient. She asked thoughtful questions. She helped Emma articulate things she'd never quite been able to put into words before. Do you think you would do it again? Rebecca asked during one interview. If you could go back to that day, knowing everything you know now, would you still give Mr. Whiskers to Officer Martinez? Emma didn't hesitate. Yes, absolutely. Even knowing how hard it would be, even knowing about the nightmares and the fear and the trial, yes, I would do it again. Because Sarah is alive. Because she has a future. Because Vincent Caruso is in prison and can't hurt anyone else. That's worth everything I went through. Sarah Chen's book, titled Brave Enough: One Woman's Journey from Darkness to Light, was published the following spring. It became a bestseller. Sarah went on a book tour speaking at schools, universities, and community centers about domestic violence awareness and the importance of speaking up. In her acknowledgments, Sarah wrote, "To the girl with the teddy bear, whose name I cannot share but whose bravery I will never forget. You saved my life. You gave me a second chance. You showed me that even children can be heroes. This book is dedicated to you and to everyone who has ever found the courage to speak up." Emma received a signed copy of the book with a personal inscription from Sarah. "To my guardian angel, thank you for everything. Love, Sarah." She kept it on her shelf next to Mr. Whiskers. The publication of Sarah's book created a ripple effect that Emma hadn't anticipated. Schools began inviting Sarah to speak about domestic violence. Police departments used her story in their training programs. Therapists recommended the book to their clients. And, most importantly, other victims of domestic violence began coming forward. Women who had been silent for years suddenly found their voices. They read Sarah's story and realized they weren't alone. They realized they deserved help and safety. Officer Martinez sent Emma an article from the local newspaper. The headline read, "Domestic Violence Hotline sees 300% increase in calls following publication of local author's memoir." He included a note. "Emma, this is what your bravery started. This is what happens when one person decides to do the right thing. You should be proud." Emma was proud. But she was also humbled by the realization that her actions had created such a significant impact. As Emma entered her sophomore year of high school, she had made a decision about her future. She was going to apply to the Specialized Arts High School. She was going to pursue art seriously. But she was also considering a second path. She wanted to study psychology or social work. She wanted to help people who had experienced trauma, just as she had been helped. "You could do both," her mother suggested. "You could be an artist and a counselor. You could help people through your art and through your words." Emma liked that idea. She liked the thought of using her talents and her experiences to help others. One evening, she sat at her desk and looked at the photos on her shelf. A picture of her with Officer Martinez and Duke. A picture of her with Sarah Chen. A picture of her with Maya at a soccer game. A picture of her with her grandmother in the garden. These photos represented her life, the different people and experiences that had shaped her. The trauma was part of her story, but it wasn't the whole story. The courage was part of her story. The healing was part of her story. The growth and transformation were part of her story. And there was still so much more story to write. Emma stood in front of a microphone in the high school auditorium, her hands trembling as she gripped her note cards. It was spring of her junior year, and she had been invited to speak about courage and speaking up. The auditorium was packed with over 800 students. Her mother sat in the front row, giving her an encouraging nod. This was the first time Emma had ever spoken publicly about her experience. Emma set down her note cards and spoke from her heart. "When I was 9 years old, I witnessed a man with a gun threatening a woman. I was terrified. I didn't know if I should tell anyone, but I did. And that decision saved a woman's life." Bravery isn't about not being scared. Bravery is about doing the right thing even when you are scared. I know many of you have witnessed things that are wrong. Bullying, someone being hurt, something illegal. Maybe you've been afraid to speak up, like I was. Speak up anyway. Tell a teacher. Tell a parent. Tell someone you trust. Your voice matters. You have the power to change someone's life. The woman I helped save is now living a full, happy life. And none of that would have happened if I hadn't found the courage to speak up. Be brave. Speak up. Your voice matters more than you know. When Emma finished, the entire auditorium erupted in applause. Students stood up. Teachers wiped tears from their eyes. After the assembly, students lined up to talk to Emma. One girl, a sophomore named Jasmine, pulled her aside. "I saw my neighbor hurting his girlfriend. I've been scared to say anything. But after hearing you speak, I'm going to tell my parents." Emma hugged her. "You're being so brave." The video of Emma's speech was posted online and quickly went viral. Within a week, it had been viewed over 100,000 times. Local news stations picked it up. Emma's inbox was flooded with messages from people around the country thanking her for speaking up. Messages came from domestic violence survivors who'd found strength in her words. Messages came from children who'd witnessed something wrong and had been inspired to report it. Messages came from teachers and counselors who wanted to use her speech in their classrooms. Emma's life changed overnight. She went from being a quiet girl to someone suddenly recognized in public. A documentary filmmaker named Dr. Lisa Chen approached Emma about featuring her story in a film about courage and resilience. After initial hesitation, Emma agreed. Over the next year, Dr. Chen filmed Emma at school, at home, speaking at events, working with a domestic violence organization. The documentary, titled The Girl with the Teddy Bear, One Teen's Journey from Witness to Advocate, premiered at a film festival and won several awards. It was picked up by a major streaming platform. Emma watched the premiere with her mother, grandmother, Officer Martinez, and Sarah Chen. When the credits rolled, Sarah squeezed Emma's hand. "You did it. You told our story. You told the world." The documentary had an even bigger impact than her speech. Schools across the country screened it. Police departments used it in training. Therapists recommended it to clients. People started speaking up. The National Domestic Violence Hotline reported a significant increase in calls. Schools reported more students coming forward about abuse they'd witnessed. Emma received letters from all over the country. A girl in Texas. "I saw my best friend being hurt by her boyfriend. Your story gave me courage to tell an adult. She's safe now." A boy in New York. "I witnessed a crime and didn't know if I should report it. Your documentary gave me courage. The criminal is now in jail." An adult in California. "I'm a survivor of domestic violence. Your documentary helped me understand that speaking up wasn't my fault." Emma kept all these letters in a box under her bed. On days when she doubted whether her work mattered, she read through them. By senior year, Emma had become a local celebrity. She was invited to speak almost every week. She was working with a nonprofit on domestic violence prevention. She was maintaining good grades and pursuing her art. But it was exhausting. There were days when she just wanted to be a regular teenager. Her therapist, Dr. Sarah, helped her set boundaries. "You don't have to say yes to everything. You can choose which opportunities align with your values." Emma started being more selective. She turned down some speaking engagements. She limited her social media. She made time for art, for friends, for just being a teenager. As Emma prepared for college, she chose a university that allowed her to double major in art and psychology. She wanted to keep both paths open. Her guidance counselor suggested art therapy, combining both her passions. The idea of helping people heal through creative expression resonated deeply with Emma. It felt like exactly what she was meant to do. On graduation day, Emma stood in her cap and gown, surrounded by family and friends. She thought back to that 9-year-old girl who had hidden evidence in a teddy bear, who had been terrified of speaking up. That girl had become a young woman who used her voice to help others. That girl had become an advocate, a speaker, a symbol of courage. As she walked across the stage to receive her diploma, she caught sight of her mother in tears, her grandmother beaming with pride, Officer Martinez and Sarah Chen smiling together. And she saw Mr. Whiskers, sitting on a chair in the front row, placed there by her grandmother as a symbol of how far Emma had come.